History is replete with accounts of Native American leaders who left their mark in the sands of time and whose names will never be forgotten. These Native American leaders were instrumental to their people's prosperity, growth, and survival. Their bravery, patriotism, and resilience earned them praise and honor among their people, and even greater acclaim in the books of history. While many of them faced opposition from hostile encroachers, settlers, and government forces, they led the local resistance to defend their lines and their lands without fear. Away from the front lines, they also achieved incredible feats in various spheres of life, and their life's work had a profound impact on their people's lives. Their bravery did not always come without a price. Some of them faced captivity, hardship, and starvation, while a few others even paid the ultimate price for their service. Despite these challenges, these men and women dared to defend their people till the end. When they were not staving off the threat of foreign settlers, they were also responsible for their people's welfare. We'll discuss more about these people in today's video. Before we get started, please tap the like and subscribe buttons for this video on your screen. When you subscribe to this channel, you will get notified whenever we post interesting video content like this one. Today's America was once home to several native groups, tribes, and early settlers who spread their camps all over its vast, unoccupied lands. These groups and tribes pitched their tents from shore to shore and identified themselves as the Sioux, Navajo, Apache, Cherokee, and several other tribes. This period in history was marked by consistent clashes and conflicts, fought to gain more lands and claim superior powers, and every tribe had fighters and leaders who led their charges. Amidst all the ensuing battles and conflicts, a few others stood out for their brave, inspiring leadership. They distinguished themselves across various fields and broke several existing barriers before they could make their mark in history. These men and women discussed here are remembered in history for their undaunting nature, strength of character, and courage in the face of adversity. Number 1. Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull was born in the Grand River Valley in modern-day South Dakota. He grew up to become one of the most famous Hunkpapa Lakota chiefs and holy men, whose impact was felt throughout the Lakota territory. He led his people's charge during many years of resistance to United States expansionism and military campaigns across Lakota territory. And he made history in the process for his incredible bravery. Sitting Bull famously refused to cede land or adhere to government and treaty stipulations against traditional living. He is famed for his victory against Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer at the legendary Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. When Custer led his 7th Cavalry Regiment into the Lakota camp, Sitting Bull was on the side of the Hunkpapa fighters, who fought alongside another historical figure in Crazy Horse and conducted a surprise ambush. They succeeded in killing Lade Cole, George Custer's 200-plus men squadron, in under an hour. The American public met the news with shock, just as it was celebrated as an immense triumph by Lakota and other tribes. Sitting Bull became the face of Native American resistance after this historic event. He evaded capture by enemy forces for more than 4 years before being forced to surrender in 1881, after facing intense starvation. During his time in prison, around 1890, Sitting Bull tried to reconcile Lakota traditions with reservation life. He still lived his latter life with an independent spirit and despised government control for as long as he lived. Sitting Bull's name continues to be associated with the struggles to protect indigenous land, people, and culture. Number 2. Geronimo. The Badonkoa band of the Chiricahua Apache in today's New Mexico is the birthplace of the famous Geronimo. His native name was Goyethla, translated loosely as one who yawns. Geronimo and his people faced decades of unending trouble with Mexican settlers. These settlers crept into their lands after Mexico's independence from Spain and caused great havoc to the local populace. Geronimo's life was forever changed in 1858, when his wife, mother, and 3 children were killed during an attack on his village by Mexican soldiers. This devastating event motivated Geronimo's fierce campaign of guerrilla warfare against powers that continually infringed on Apache land and sovereignty. In the 1870s and 1880s, Geronimo joined forces with Apache leaders, Victorio and Cochise, to raid and attack American outposts and settlers in southwest New Mexico and Arizona. They hit a few targets and barely escaped capture using their knowledge of desert terrain. Geronimo was not one to agree to reservation. He fought tirelessly to preserve traditional hunting and living and encouraged his people not to be deterred by their threatening enemies. His band of Apaches conducted their warfare strategically. They would often disappear across the border, back into Mexico, after making their mark on the front lines. And it was a strategy that was successful for the most part. After Victorio was killed, Geronimo continued, hitting trade caravans, rail lines, and settlers before finally surrendering in 1886. He was surrounded by 5,000 American troops, led by General Nelson Miles. So he had no choice but to succumb to the superior firepower. Although he became a prisoner of war for decades and was shuffled between venues, Geronimo was permitted to participate in the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904, during which he attempted to make money from his fame by selling photographs and souvenirs. At the end of his life, Geronimo held the reputation of a fearless leader who, despite losing his family, fought fearlessly to defend his people against reservations of all kinds. 3. Chief Joseph. Chief Joseph was known at birth as Inmutu Palatal, and his birthplace was the Wallowa Valley area of what is now called northeastern Oregon. He inherited the role of chief of the Walamwat kind band of about 800 Nez Perce, and was nicknamed Chief Joseph by American settlers because he was thought to resemble the biblical figure, Joseph. Chief Joseph was a man who promoted peaceful coexistence and consistently refused to attack or raid nearby white settlements, but something had to give way when the government tried to force all of Nez Perce onto an Idaho reservation in the 1870s. The move required that the Wallowa Band give up their ancestral valley lands where generations were buried. Chief Joseph advocated for diplomacy in his usual attempt to shun violence, but after the brutal murder of 3 young Nez Perce, he reluctantly prepared for war, refusing to concede his people's lands. When government forces arrived, Chief Joseph helped lead 800 Nez Perce on an attempted escape to find sanctuary in Canada, 15 miles away. The band traveled through Oregon, Washington State, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana for 3 months and covered 1,700 miles in the process. This massive distance was one of the longest strategic retreats in military history, and they did all this while evading or battling soldiers from the enemy lines. Chief Joseph finally surrendered after being cut off just 40 miles from Canada and suffering exhaustion from the arduous journey. He famously declared that his people would fight no more forever, in a speech that could have been seen as less of a native defeat, but a moral victory. Though his leadership was unparalleled, he was later betrayed when the government broke promises and forced his followers onto reservations in Kansas and Oklahoma Indian Territory. Despite this, Chief Joseph remained resolute in his call to let his people return, and the government later allowed them to return to the Northwest. Number 4. Crazy Horse was born into the Oglala Band of Lakota Sioux. He started to experience the conflict with encroaching settlers and miners from an early age. While he was aged 16 in 1865, he fought in Red Cloud's war over control of the Powder River country in Wyoming and Montana, a prime buffalo hunting ground. Crazy Horse became well known as a skilled Lakota warrior who continuously evaded capture and was not afraid of taking risks in battle. He even refused attempts to be made into an American Indian policeman and opted instead to stick to Lakota traditions. Crazy Horse worked tirelessly to unite the Lakota and Cheyenne resistance in the Black Hills. As mining and railroads brought a surge of settlers, he led daring assaults, such as the Battle of the Rosebud, where he defeated General Crook. Most famously, Crazy Horse co-led a vast combined force of Lakota and Cheyenne that gave a crushing defeat to Colonel George Custer at Little Bighorn in 1876. America suffered its worst losses at the hands of Plains Indians, led by fearless folks like Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse eventually surrendered in the spring of 1877 after he was promised a fair reservation. While he was imprisoned at Camp Robinson during the summer of the same year, he was killed by a guard after an alleged struggle. Crazy Horse was revered as an inspirational war leader and defender of culture, and he continues to be known as a symbol of resistance against adversity. Number 5. Chief Seattle. Chief Seattle was a principal figure of the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes in the Puget Sound area. He is famous for negotiating his people's response to the arrival of settlers. Chief Seattle was born on the Black River near modern Kent, and little detail is known of his growing up. As white contact increased in the 1850s, bringing tensions and warfare along with it, the exploits of Chief Seattle came to light. This was a period when Governor Isaac Stevens planned to pressure tribes to sign treaties, limiting them to reservations in a bid to carve out land for American settlement. At an 1855 meeting of chiefs to consider Stevens' proposed treaty terms, Chief Seattle gave a legendary speech that continues to resonate throughout history. He stressed the need to live in harmony with settlers when possible, but called for the refusal of land exploitation or disregard for native ties to the environment. The treaty was signed, granting Seattle's people less desirable reservation. It also left non-reservation fishing rights that Seattle wisely fought for. Chief Seattle later converted to Catholicism, staying neutral during brief Indian wars before dying from disease around 1866. His forward-thinking speech made him an icon for modern environmentalism. Number 6. Pontiac. Pontiac was an Ottawa chief, born in the Maumee River Valley in modern-day Ohio. While not much is known of his growing up, his exploits as a critical figure in the native resistance against British occupation belong in the history books. When the British took over former French territory in the Great Lakes region following the French and Indian War, Pontiac grew suspicious. Rumors had it that Britain aimed to colonize western lands. To this effect, they started threatening native groups who relied on the territory for trapping furs and hunting game. Pontiac helped to launch a rebellion against a fresh British occupation in the frontier west of Appalachia. Using careful planning and diplomacy, he managed to convince a coalition of tribes like the Delaware, Shawnee, Ojibwa, Huron, and Potawatomi to join his cause. Their joint plan was to strategically attack British outposts and try to seize the key forts of Detroit, Niagara, and Pitt in the Ohio country. The Allies failed to take the vital strongholds, although they seized several small forts and settlements. Pontiac and his group succeeded in killing over 400 British soldiers and over 2,000 settlers. This great loss led to Britain issuing the Proclamation Line that served to block Western settlement. Britain would later negotiate diplomatic agreements and peacetime relations with Great Lakes tribes instead of promoting more violence. Since then, Pontiac has been acknowledged for his work as a legendary unifier. He understood that pan-Indian coordination and strategy were crucial to tackling the expanding British power. and his leadership helped prevent his people from succumbing to British rule. Number 7. Susan La Flèche, Picot. Susan La Flèche broke boundaries for Native American women when she became the first formally trained Indigenous female doctor. She achieved this rare feat in 1889 after she attended the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania. She had been born in 1865 on the Omaha Reservation in Nebraska to parents who pushed for her academic development. Her father was an Omaha chief responsible for negotiating with Washington politicians. After working for the Office of Indian Affairs, Dr. Picot realized her dream of founding a small hospital on Nebraska's reservation in the 1930s. Her vision was that this hospital would give Native Americans better access to health care, given the prevailing inefficiency of the then Indian Health Service. Although it struggled with staffing and funding, Dr. Picot skillfully maintained the facility almost on her own and was eager to use her money when necessary. She worked tirelessly to deliver medical care by providing life-saving surgery, caring for expectant mothers, containing infectious diseases, and several other acts. Her passion for improving Lakota's health through hands-on community care and education continued to drive her. At times, Picot would make house calls, irrespective of location or a patient's ability to pay. Unfortunately for Picot, her dedication came with a price as she succumbed at age 50 to bone tuberculosis, which she likely contracted from a patient years earlier. Despite that, Susan La Flèche, Picot made an indelible impact in her short time here. She was the overworked pioneer physician and advocate who served Nebraska's tribes with immense zeal and zest. She overcame gender-based prejudice to promote modern health care suited to marginalized Native communities. Number 8. Wilma Mankiller. Wilma Mankiller is popularly known as the first woman elected principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. And this was a feat she achieved despite facing tremendous hardship and prejudice. She was born in Oklahoma in 1945, and her family moved to San Francisco as part of a government assimilation program. The young Wilma married an activist on the Native American-occupied island of Alcatraz when she was just 17. Once the occupation ended, Mankiller pursued social work to help the Cherokee while raising her 2 daughters. In 1983, Chief Ross Swimmer appointed Mankiller as his deputy principal chief, and this historic move positioned her as heir apparent for principal chief. Mankiller won the election in 1987, while suffering from myasthenia gravis. Her time in service saw her implementing community programs and business ventures to empower the Cherokee Nation. Her primary focus was healthcare, education, rural infrastructure, tribal registration drives, and preserving her people's Cherokee culture. Mankiller helped to promote tribal membership and revive cultural traditions impacted negatively by America's Indian termination policy, and these were impressive feats for a modern woman chief. Wilma Mankiller eventually passed away in 2010 following her stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosis. Mankiller's visionary leadership and dedication to Cherokee prosperity, self-sufficiency, and sovereignty were her most significant contributions. She left behind an indelible mark that helped to revitalize and bring progress to her tribe. At the height of her journey, Mankiller battled entrenched sexism and systemic injustice to open doors for Native American women. She set new standards for Cherokee revival and is forever remembered as an icon for resolve and advancement of equality. Wilma's incredible story brings a fitting end to today's video. Her unwavering commitment to her tribe's welfare earned her a place among the memorable names featured in today's video. These men and women will be remembered for their bravery, determination, patriotism, industry, zeal, and commitment to whatever cause they were invested in. Whether fighting against armed invaders or creating community welfare and development programs for their people, they put all their minds to it and did not look back. They faced different levels of adversity, and a few even gave their lives for the cause. Today, we remember their names in history as some of the Native American leaders who changed history. This is where we come to the end of yet another thoroughly exciting and insightful video from our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for taking the time to watch it till the end. If you have enjoyed watching this video and are interested in seeing more of such, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We'll send you a notification whenever we post a new video. Please also remember to like this video and share it with your friends. See you next time.